Welcome, welcome, welcome. Waiting for everyone to just tune in, or whoever's meant to be to hear this message to come through. As I sit here outside, being grateful, feeling grateful for many things, especially because we're in November, and especially with November, if you're in the East Coast, up in the Northern Hemisphere, November is right before winter time, so it could get brisky. And so I'm grateful that it's nice enough for me to even be out here, because normally I'll be like the first to be inside because it's pretty cold, right? But I have really beautiful comfy blankets, and I'm out in my garden, which it's been a very long time, the past couple of months. I've been working long hours, and so I'm grateful for even to be here with you guys. And today I have a message to share with you guys, and this is going to be around the theme of traditions and lineage, especially because, and let me know if you can hear me, if you guys are here. Give a thumbs up. Hearts are always welcomed. And with especially having entered Sagittarius season, and if you've seen my posts, I've been posting all week, how especially with Sagittarius, it loves to learn and gain experience and definitely get its own perspectives from many sources, so to speak, right? And so this was perfect alignment because we entered Sagittarius right before Thanksgiving Day. If you're in Northern America, right? North America. We just celebrated that on Thursday. And so it's a time of when people are gathering together, and you're going back home, right? And not only that, that could bring with it a lot of energies can come up. And especially when you go back home, you are with people, you're with family, that could bring up memories, right? Or energetic ties and just energies coming up. And so this is just highlighting a bit of how the universe has been responding, in my reality with me. And I definitely wanted to share this because I thought it was such a really good, powerful message, and definitely in alignment to where I am. Because if you've been following along, just things have been shifting, especially with branding and everything in my business, and the next step, especially as we go into the next year. And for those of you who are new, my name is Stephanie, Divine Cosmic Empress, and I am a shamanic high priestess. I work with the energy, the spirit of the cosmos, planets, also earth energy, and that's the elementals, plants, crystals, and all of this is just not necessarily taught, but because it's really in alignment with spirit, right? And so sharing my experience this weekend, it relates to really, where do we start? And I want to start off just painting the theme when we think about traditions and lineage, especially for those of us who, many of us come from blood lineages, maybe in this lifetime or before, where we come from families who are of indigenous cultures, right? And one that's always been especially the past couple of weeks, because I just came back from a trip, and I just came back from Mexico. And let me know if you can hear me. How's volume? And so I just came back from Mexico, and it's always a beautiful space when you travel because you get downloads, you get messages, guidance from spirit. And for me in particular, this brings back, and let me know if you guys, has anyone watched the Black Panther movie, the second one, right? Because this is going to have some reference just to kind of help you to articulate that, synthesize it in your mind's eye. And how they were talking about the Mayans, right? And one major thing, because at the same time, that same week before we saw the movie, my husband and we went to Mexico, we went to Tulum, and we had a tour guide. And the major thing that I knew was a major message that just has kept unraveling has been around like the Mayans. You know, we always thought, or I always thought, that they were like extinct, eradicated. That's what we hear in our stories of like history. And when she said, our tour guide said that actually they weren't eradicated. They did not just like disappear and were wiped out. They actually had to evolve. They had to evolve to survive, right? They had to evolve and become anew so they can, you know, adapt and, survival, just be present, right? So that like really stood out. And ever since then, as I mentioned, it's just been unraveling more. And so this story kind of like the elaborate creation, right, of this message stands through, and I'm sharing this because it's like everyone has their own perspective, and that this ties into the message and work that I do and that I'm calling in, is with especially that I could say, where do I want to start? Taking that on. So we know that like a lot of us carry these codes, right? Medicine woman, high priestess, shamanic like warrior, right? And we have these codes, we have these wisdoms, we have these nudges that just intuitively guide us to a particular way of being and passions and desires. And really what brought it together was I was at a party, a Thanksgiving party with family, and someone had asked me, do you have any like indigenous like background, like family in you? Because you kind of look like you might be carrying some of that. And I was like, actually, as a matter of fact, I know I do. And it's surprisingly, especially when you're walking the faith and you're walking in your spirit journey, you have to go through faith, right? And in particular with me, I actually never got to meet my grandparents, like physically, especially, like I never really got to live like in my country, in our country of origin, which is Guatemala, right? Where you have a lot of Mayans, and indigenous tribes there, because they're really about preservation. And however, though, I've always carried this like passion. It's like always been in me that from a little girl, it's like, it's so important to not lose your culture, to not lose where you came from, the history, the beautiful lessons that they carry, that they've brought in through ages, right? And one story in particular I can think of is my great, who knows how many times, grandmother who came from Mexico. My dad told me where she came pregnant and she left everything there to come to Guatemala on her own. And that resonated really deeply. And I know that for a fact, as I weave this message about tradition and lineage, it's also bringing up like things of spirit and Akashic that will communicate with me to fill in the blanks of whatever it is I need to integrate. And so when we talk about traditions and lineage, so many times we have so much like anxieties, fears, that we feel, that we carry. And I always like to equate this to like the Christian text, right? That you have been given this sword in your side, right? And at least from a spiritual perspective and shamanic perspective too, it's like we learn not to fear it. It's something that is on our journey path so that we can grow with it. We can reveal the light and what it is that what we are here to evolve into and to express and to embrace and the knowledge of ourselves. And as the birds are here singing. And then oftentimes too, we feel like we get carried away with these thoughts, right? And essentially all of it are things that are either from your current lifetime now or things that you carry from the collective, because there is collective wounds and collective like memories that still need to be healed, and we heal them as we heal ourselves, as we work on ourselves. And then there's also collective wounds or memories or energetic residues, you can so to speak, that you carry in your cells, in your body, from your own lineage, right? And for what I know in terms of my own lessons here with my grandmother and like the whole indigenous thing, right? I wanted to bring up some extractions of lessons that I feel very pertinent, especially with like the collective of souls who are in here in this lifetime, who feel like this calling to work with just like the natural aspects of the earth, right? Whether that's with plants themselves, like, or you work with like agriculture, you work and are drawn with crystals, you are drawn to the natural way of healing. That is ancient wisdom codes that you carry from your own lineage, right? And so in particular, I've always had this like message, like this is like what I'm here to protect, this is what I stand for. And it's about, you know, coming here to definitely be an advocate for like self-expression, creativity, and to feel free to be yourself, right? Because not only from a personal perspective, having to go through that, but also from the collective wounding of women. And you can see these themes of women feeling oppressed, cultures, indigenous cultures, right? Feeling oppressed, feeling like, especially with women and I love how the moment I started speaking about this, all these women started coming through. How over in the East, like we've had this come through collectively because it's needed to be healed with, you know, now I can't speak on the East culture because that's not where I'm from, right? I don't know that fully, but I know, especially as being a female and a woman, like we have this fear, or we have to go against a little bit more than other people when it comes to us being viewed as items, right? Or something to be possessed, or something where you can dictate how we can dress or how we can act and how we can be in our lives, right? And all of these are outdated forms of, you know, thinking, forms of, you know, thoughts that, again, as I mentioned in the beginning of the live, and yes, definitely, like, I'm glad that resonates with you, you know, that we carry. So, you know, whether it's in the family, whether it's societal, right? And I feel like these are the things, if you feel it, and if it's come up to your frame of reference in your own life, and it lights you up too, right? It's because you're here to stand up for that, right? And on that note, we might have people at times where they might feel, especially like the opposite gender, right? The males, people are like, well, it has no impact on me. And if you're a male and you're watching this, it's like, that's true. Not everyone's battle is going to be there, you know, not every war, not every battle is your own to carry, right? But we can all agree on the basic premises that, you know, all life is sacred, right? And harm none, right? And that also means not trying to control, not trying to oppress somebody, not trying to form them and manipulate them into how you would want them to be, right? And you think about the people around you, you know, whether that's your own mother, your own daughter in the future, if you ever have any, you know, you know, friends, sisters. And if through compassion you feel moved to act, I pray you have the courage to step forth and in your own way act. And so this kind of leads on to the next segment where it's like, okay, so this is especially with this like collective wounding and then what it is that has been coming up the past couple of months and for a while now, right? With the women, the collective wound there. And then how you can see how through technology and through times evolving, right? Even women over there, get to be awakened to the fact that, hey, this is actually an outdated system. Like, this is actually, it hits them in their awareness. It hits everybody in their awareness. It's not something I actually have to partake. I don't have to go through, right? Because there's another way. Other people somewhere else get to express themselves, get to wear whatever that is they want, get to say and express themselves without having the fear of, right? And so in life, and this message can also be applied to, and it doesn't have to be just with, with the women and feminism, right? But it can be applied to any type of old belief that's outdated. This is overall message too that can be applied to. That in truth, we have like many choices. And one, being at the top, you could think of, you can definitely revolt, you can say something, you can share your message, and that takes a lot of courage to do, because there are risks sometimes. You risk someone not liking you, you risk, not being accepted, and you also risk at some points in certain situations and circumstances, unfortunately, where you might become a martyr, right? But I feel that the people who take that on and go and take that risk, right? They are aware. And just taking a moment they are aware. They make a decision that they want to speak up for themselves, right? And also to note and highlight that whenever we make some sort of bold move to break from the norm, to break from the outdated, paradigm, right? You also liberate others, because you become the example, because you shared your post or you showed some sort of perspective. You never know if that'll circulate and go off to another country where somebody never once even knew about this way of being or dressing, or whatever it is your message is, that liberates someone's like mental consciousness, and go oh, that's possible. I get to question this, I get to step into and maybe form and dream a little bit more about my own reality and desires, right? Lead by example. And that's powerful. Second choice that we have in our lives is that we have the ability to also, maybe it doesn't get to that level of you can say stage or representation, or say not 1 billion people are going to see it, right? Or start a huge movement that's so loud and out there, but you can find a local community. You can find like-minded people, and even local nowadays, that could be online, right? Where you connect, you gather together, you support each other, and through your own shared experience and shared desires, you guys are sharing life, which is what everyone wants. They want to feel supported, right? They want to feel like they're not alone in this, especially when they're getting the support of leaving an old way of being and tradition that sometimes feels suffocating, and you're afraid to move in the opposite direction and do something completely new, because that's what everyone else considers normal. But it might not be normal for you. Maybe it's not even something in your heart that you feel I want to even claim, right? And maybe I don't even believe in that, right? Because you're free on your spiritual walk and journey to form your own beliefs, your own way of being, just as long as it goes back to number one, that it harms none, right? And that you also give the grace for somebody else to be their authentic truth. My third point that came through was that through our choices, we also have another one that goes back to the original story that I brought through about my grandmother, great-great-great-grandmother who left. You always have the choice to leave. And when it comes to that is something that is also something that requires a lot of courage, where in vulnerability in all of these aspects that I listed, especially with number 2, in forming community, being vulnerable enough to share and let down your walls and be seen and heard, right? And to receive somebody else as well. So in number 3, you can choose to leave. And I know sometimes it might be like, oh, I don't have the money, or I don't have a place to live, or I don't even know. What if you're going to another country, as an example, just like painting it out there? I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what's going to happen when I get there. And as I said those words, and when that awareness and the download came, I really felt like that was like my great-great-grandmother, like letting me know, like, she took the bold move, right? She didn't know how and what was going to happen, but she knew that if she left, she would have a better chance of survival, right? At least a hope and a glimpse of what she would want. Like, she would get the permission to dream, right? And isn't that what the hope is for a lot of us too? Like, I would like the opportunity to create, the opportunity to dream, right? And that really, when you tie this all together back to traditions and lineage with the Sagittarius fire season, that all together, this is where we come in, right? We are the ones who reincarnated in this lifetime now. And the reason I'm speaking directly, it's like to me and to other beautiful souls, and I feel like they're women, because I actually met somebody else like this weekend, and she was like, I feel like I have a connection to these things with the earth, but I'm also feeling like I have this fear to open that up more, this fear of getting to know what else is in there, right? And from what I was feeling, and because I felt that before, I felt like afraid to like step into that like teachings, to go down the rabbit hole, so to speak. And I mentioned this in my post earlier this week where I said, that with every shadow there's a gift, right? That I wish that when I was younger, someone would have told me that there's nothing to be afraid of, especially when it comes to the dark, right? Because, and from what I firmly believe, when you work with spirit, when you work with the energy of nature, when you work with your spirit guides, in my realm, in my reality, I don't believe in like bad spirits, spirits that, yeah, there's energy out there that could maybe, not be of the best intention. But if you carry that type of thought, again, even old thoughts and beliefs that might not be yours, right? Then that is what you're going to experience in your own life. And like I mentioned, like I had this desire, creativity, passion, curiosity to explore paganism and the nature spirits and working through ceremony and ritual. But it was because I had a family member who was very, very religious. And they were like, when they saw that, it was like, I felt like I did something terrible, right? And like, oh my God, this is bad, right? And it stopped me from going down that path for years. And it came back to me just until recently, because I realized, what, my own spiritual journey and working with other people, like-minded souls who've helped me to, realize that it is mine to claim, right? Well, there's nothing wrong with that. That was that person's belief and perspective. But it did not feel like that to me. It did not feel like it was dangerous to go and step into and working through magic or working through ritual and ceremony to engage and play and have a deeper type of relationship experience with spirit, right? With source. And so for any other medicine women here today, you have codes, you have wisdom, you have your spirit guides, and you have your ancestors of the most benevolent, highest, greatest good with you. And they are calling us to remember, to also, step into and own that truth, the codes that we carry, but also to evolve, to renew ourselves in the new way of life of where we are now. And I firmly believe a lot of us, like, we're meant to, practice the old ways, right? The wisdom teachings that we've had and carry, and for many traditions on, have had a relationship, right, and a way of connection, so that, one, we feel empowered. And not only that, but you also realize how you're all creators in your own birthright, right? And in this lifetime, I feel it's like we have a new way of being. We have a different way of approaching life from, again, an empowered state, so that we are here to create, empires, right? To release art, to leave legacies by being, really just bold enough to be yourself. And however it is that it'll result in your own walk of life. And that is what I feel was like the major message right now, in terms of calling in today's medicine women, or mystic, priestess, that we have available to us more resources, guidance. And I've always just seen it, because this is something my dad has always told me, and he was very from like the Christian Catholic perspective. And it's like, when you have God, and I always firmly believe this too, like, and when you read texts and you listen to the word differently, and it hits you on a more spiritual, like, level, and you realize from the etheric level too, it's like, oh, that word, that sentence means something different, right? Deeper than what you can see from surface value. That, like, when you pray and you ask for guidance, or when you are just praying in general and asking to receive something, or some aid, right? That you literally do have the power in those words in your heart, when you are invoking, when you are claiming. And that's just like a taste but it's a really big foundation of a lot of the teachings and work that we're here to come back to, and to apply to our now modern day way of living. And I would say that was really the major message, that this is to really focus in and speaking to those mystical, magical medicine priests and priestesses, who are feeling the energetic, like, fear or anxiety to step into their truth, to seek more, right? To open up and discover a little bit more about what your own selves, what your own spirit, higher self is leading you towards. And I say, trust it, like, have fun with it, explore, and there's nothing to be afraid of. And other little notes before I go, I would say that I have my flash sale right now going on, where I will be increasing my prices soon. Now the sessions will be available after December 7th for right now. And if you definitely end up booking whatever service it is that you want, whether that's oracle readings or shamanic journeys, or even energy healing work, where I also incorporate crystal healing as well. If you do that before December 21st, you can definitely have that pricing, and then we can book, whether it's from December 7th up until at least, I would say, mid-January or so, or the end of January. I'll see how I feel. Especially because right now I am going through a rebranding, and I am realizing I'm being guided towards who it is I'm speaking towards, right? Who it is that I will be working with next. And you can feel free to DM me. You can send me also an email at divinecosmicjourney@gmail.com, or check out my website at divinecosmicjourney, .com. So very easy. And I'll be posting for your convenience this video here on the YouTube, just to have a different format for you available. And just know that we have this flash sale going on for 25% for the services until December 21st, which is the winter solstice. And if any of this part of the message, today with traditions, lineage, ancestors, or even going back to the indigenous cultures, resonated with your heart and with your soul, let me know. I would love to hear. And I pray you guys have a beautiful rest of the week. And I can't wait to share with you guys more about working with the energies, working with your ancestors, spirit guides, and Satnam. And so my heart is so full, and I'm grateful because after doing this live, and I'm like rewatching it, because one of my mentors, she says like she watches her messages to see what like downloads comes through. Shout out to Ina. And for me, like, I so feel it in my soul and my heart that my great grandmother, who is one of my spirit guides, and who has been for like years since I've started on this journey, like, is letting me know the truth here. So many of us are the star seeds of the hope that was planted in the wombs and bellies of our ancestors who came here. Maybe if they weren't able to express themselves to complete something for themselves, they had hope that down the line we would. And so we're here meant to protect, to remember, to share the messages, the teachings, to not lose them, and to reuse them in our modern day lives, right? To build empires, lineages, to create and share art from our heart souls, and again, bring heaven onto earth. This is the new earth, right? But we have resources and ways of doing that go back to deep teachings and understandings. And so tying it all in, what is it that you're willing to do? How far are you willing to go for your truth? And think about it, even if it helps to empower you today, like, you are the star seed that was planted in someone's womb. You are the hope and the light to bring forth, out your lineage, your whole empire, right, forward. You are the hope.